Hello, my name's Julie Helm, and I'm going to review with you some laboratory overview about submitting samples and using submission forms for the Clemson Diagnostic Lab. So during peacetime, I am a poultry veterinarian and not a pig veterinarian, but I have touched a few pigs in my day in school. And so I'm going to show you a system that I had developed with our commercial poultry industry on pre-setting up submission forms, information for the lab database, et cetera, for outbreak situations. So I'm going to cover the Clemson lab and the submission form, your information and your farm's information. And then at the end will be a video on how to sample the packaging and how to ship it to the diagnostic lab. So the Clemson Veterinary Diagnostic Center is located in Columbia, just northeast of Columbia, that yellow star. During peacetime, our hours are Monday through Friday, 8 until 6:30 when people can drop off samples, and then Saturday from 10 until 2. That's the receiving desk number, and our director is Dr. Kakani. We are also part of the National Animal Health Laboratory Network, which means we're accredited in order to do testing for African swine fever, classical swine fever, and foot-mouth disease using the PCR test. And what I did is similar to what I have done for poultry is I created a swine surveillance lab submission form that will be personalized for each of the companies. And there's a generic one too for backyard herds. So you might be wondering, at which point do you actually start collecting samples and start sending them to the Clemson lab? And the easy answer is when Dr. Nault tells you to go ahead and start. So this would be in an event of an outbreak, a situation that we need samples to be done. And don't worry, we won't leave you hanging. We will send you information once this starts. So I will probably resend you your personalized lab surveillance form. We will send you instructions on what samples you need to take and how to store them and how to deliver them to the lab. And probably we will send your farm list back to you so you can update it so we can update the Clemson lab laboratory information management system that we work off. So this is just an example. It's still in progress. This is draft number 2 of the swine surveillance submission form. So with the commercial companies, each company would have their own personalized form. It just makes it easier that you don't have to fill everything out. We're still drafting this. We still have to figure out which samples are approved for African swine fever PCR, and I'll probably be up until the point that this really happens. So this form will actually probably change over time, but this is just an example. So this is an example on filling it out. So everything in yellow is what you would need to fill out with your own personalized farm. So you would need to, with my little arrow there, you need to fill out the farm name. You, as the collector or the veterinarian, whoever's collecting the samples, would need to sign their name there. On the left, there's this box. It's kind of essentially the herd information. So the date the samples were collected, the premise ID number of that farm, the farm name. If you have a group lot number for that group of animals that you're testing, add it there. The size of that group, the age in days, weeks, months, or years. And if the swine are planning to move soon, what is the estimated date? And then on the right is the samples submitted. So how many samples are submitted? And this is just an example. I said we were going to do swabs and for blood and swabs and spleen, 20 animals each. And then what test is requested. And so for this example, it's African swine fever PCR. I am just guessing that we can pool up to 5 samples into one tube. So that would be 8 total, 4 for blood swabs, 4 for spleen swabs, 8 total PCRs that we would do in the lab. For the identification numbers here at the bottom, if you're not using a group or a lot number, I realize sow or boar, breeding boars may have individual ID numbers. So on the tubes, you could put, if it's one tube of one animal, you could put their individual number. Or if we're actually pooling sow samples or boar samples, you could say tube 1 and list all the IDs that are contained in that tube. What about the small pigs? So someone gave me this idea, is you would actually just label it as piglet and what sow number that piglet was attached to. So that would be for like an individual sample, or if you're pooling piglets from different sows, you could actually call it piglet with a sow and then list off the sow names for how many were allowed to pool in that tube. So what's really important is to get the Clemson Diagnostic Lab ready, because that is where the bottleneck is at the receiving desk. If people have to come in and fill out these blank forms from the beginning without getting us all the information, it kind of really slows things down. So in order to speed this up, like I've done with the poultry, what I want to do is create specific disease accession templates that are in our Clemson Lab database. So it's already preset. So I would set up a African swine fever template for each commercial company. And then I would set up a template for the general backyard farms. All the company party information would already be in the limbs, and each of the farm parties information would already be in the limbs. So we don't have to start typing it in at the receiving desk. And when the submission form and the samples arrive, essentially what we do is we just open up the company's accession template. It already has all the company parties listed, including who gets what type of report, whether it's an email, snail mail, or a fax. We add the farm party, and then we add the sample types and identifications. So this really speeds up the receiving desk. And then we move on to the next submission very quickly. So for adding that party information into the Clemson Lab limbs ahead of time, such as now, this is what I would need from you. I need your information. So your vets, your production managers, whoever you want to get reports and how they want to get reports. Do they want to get them emailed, mailed, or faxed? I need to get that information, your contact information, as well as I need to get your farm's information. They don't have to receive reports, and if you don't want them to, we will set their printer options to not receive any reports at all. But we do need the farm information, and not just a little bit of it. I do need a lot of it. So I need the farm name, the premise ID number, the location address, and then the grower's name, mailing address, and phone. What type of farm is it? Is it a breeder, nursery, finisher? And then the farm capacity. So just contact me down below is my email to get me this information, or if you have questions about it. So next up, you're going to watch a video on laboratory sampling, packaging, and shipping. The only difference from this video is we are asking that you actually put the absorbent material in the plastic bag with samples if it's blood tubes or PCR tubes. And then I would suggest putting another ice pack on top of the samples before you close the lid and seal it up. And if you have any questions, just be sure to ask us, contact us.